Well, I got to look at this myself. Wow. What a view.
In a world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Thursday, the 21st of May, year of our Lord 2026. Well, today we're going to take a look at, how's this war going? And what are people like Lindsey Graham and Donald Trump pushing at this point? It is getting really crazy as we look at what is happening with the ballroom. I think it's become a perfect metaphor for this criminal, corrupt government that starts building bunkers for itself. What is it? We have people who've looked at all the prepping being done by the uber rich. What about this kind of prepping? This is the guy who could push us in and has pushed us into a war, one war after the other. Is he expecting for domestic warfare to come to the United States? Certainly looks like it, doesn't it? He's gone from decadence to a bunker mentality. We'll be right back. Stay with us. And of course, Tony Arterburn will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. Always a pleasure to talk to Tony. We'll find out what's going on as he sees, as he follows gold and the economy. What is happening? What do we expect to see happen with this? So much of this is tied up with war. So let's begin with that. We have F-15s and F-35, a lot of MQ-9 Reaper drones. A U.S. report says that 42 aircraft have been lost in the Iran war. War Pete likes to brag about how we destroyed their Air Force. They didn't have an Air Force. We destroyed their Navy. They didn't have a Navy. But you know what? They could have built an Air Force out of what we have lost. And so, again, it is this dirty, incompetent war and the lies that fuel it, because that is really what is the fuel for this. And as we look at this in terms of equipment, what do you think the real casualty numbers are? Now, a lot of these are unmanned vehicles like the drones and the Reaper drones and things like that. Nevertheless, they're going to lie to us about equipment that they lost, because we know they don't care at all about the dollar figures. We're looking at about $25 billion. So we know they don't care about that. I mean, that's peanuts, isn't it, to borrow a term from Trump? But what about lives that have been lost? American lives that have been lost, for example. Well, they would probably guard that even more closely. At least 42 U.S. military aircraft, including fighter jets, drones, have been lost or damaged during the war in Iraq. The losses may increase due to multiple factors, including classification, ongoing combat activity, attribution, and the report by the Congressional Research Service. Now, this Congressional Research Service that is doing this for Congress could not get any information from War Pete. That's pretty telling, isn't it? They put this together from news reports. and of course, Pete doesn't want any reporters. He threw the reporters out. And he has got a lawsuit right now in the New York Times how they would escort people around and shield them from getting any information. Anybody who asks him any direct questions, he accuses them of being the enemy, of asking him gotcha questions. You know, what's your plan on this? Well, that's a gotcha question. Did you do this or do that? Which are relevant, fair questions. That's a gotcha question. You're just against the president, who is God. Shut up. That's what he responds with every time. So the increase comes from having a refined estimate. Again, it is a refined estimate. It's taken from news reports. There is never an audit of the Pentagon. You know, when you look at these bureaucracies that are out of control, that are destroying our country, isn't it interesting that you never audit the Pentagon, you never audit the Fed? Last time somebody was auditing the Pentagon, they got a missile through their window. That was on 9/11. That's what you get when you got a bureaucracy that is stealing. They don't get any audits. I wonder why. Anyway, 4 F-15E Strike Eagle fighters were lost. 1 F-35 fighter aircraft, another A-10 Thunderbolt 2, that's the Warthog ground attack aircraft. 7 KC-135 Stratotankers, the refueling aircraft. 2 Commando Special Op aircraft. 1 Jolly Green Giant Combat Search and Rescue helicopter. 24 MQ-9 Reaper drones that operate at very high altitude and long distance, and 1 MQ-4C high altitude, long endurance, uncrewed aircraft. So War Pete has not published a comprehensive assessment of combat losses so far. He doesn't want you to know even how much aircraft they've lost. He certainly doesn't want you to know how many people have been lost. So again, the congressional organization that put this together, the CRS, just went through and put this together from perusing news reports, they said. Wow, what about that? So again, Iran's foreign minister reposted that and commented, and he said, months after the initiation of war in Iran, U.S. Congress acknowledges loss of dozens of aircraft worth billions. 42 worth $25 billion. Our powerful armed forces, he means the Iranians, are confirmed as the first to strike down the touted F-35. This is a state-of-the-art fighter, and they took one of them down. With lessons learned and knowledge that we gained, if we return to war, we'll feature many more surprises, he said. Well, yeah, they seem to be surprised by everything. Surprised by the Strait of Hormuz, for example. The world has...
War Pete not wanting anyone to know the details of his failure is no surprise. But this is a organization that says they provide legal analysis to Congress, and they need to get information from news reports.
Yeah, he doesn't want them to have it either. You know, if you are winning, you don't have to beg for help from other countries, and you don't have to threaten other countries if they don't help you. And if you're winning, you don't have to hide that information. But of course, he doesn't have any well-defined strategic objectives, and he doesn't have any strategic victories. So all he does is the old Vietnam strategy. And of course, retired Colonel McGregor has talked about this. He said, I saw this during Vietnam. Body counts and bombing runs and that is not a victory. You can do that forever and still lose a war. And so, again, that's what Hegseth has done. The world has 6 months, meanwhile, to avert a major food crisis, says a UN organization looking at what is happening. And even though this is the UN, this is true, folks. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz is not a temporary disruption, but it is the start of a systemic shock to global food prices, says the UN Food Agency. Well, we know that it is a systemic shock to energy as well. It's a major shock to all of this stuff like we've never seen before. There's dimensions, secondary, tertiary effects of this that we didn't see during the 1973 OPEC oil embargo. And as I pointed out yesterday, why did that happen? Well, it happened because we gave military equipment to Israel in 1973 when they were fighting the Arabs. And why did we give that equipment? Initially, Henry Kissinger, who's Jewish, was withholding that. He didn't want to do it because it was not in America's best interest. And even though he was Jewish, he wanted to build up American power. Unlike the Americans that we have in power now, they want to build up Israeli power, whatever happens to America. And so Jonathan Pollard bragged about the fact that Israel blackmailed the United States, blackmailed Kissinger into giving them weapons. They said, fly your surveillance equipment over here and take a look at this plane. And he said, I'm not going to say what it was. We all know it was nuclear. And he says, well, it was an unconventional weapon of mass destruction. And we need to threaten to do that with Iran as well, to use the Japanese option, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. It's just amazing to me. And you look at how these same traitors were involved in this, the Israeli nuclear program. They've never had any inspectors. They won't actually say the word. They will make these cagey admissions and so forth. Can they be trusted with a nuclear weapon? Why should they have a nuclear weapon? I don't think they can be trusted. Jonathan Pollard is saying, we threatened to do it once before. We should do it now against Iran. Start out with an EMP, then give them the real thing, right? These people are insane. Total strange love. Total Nazis. That's what they are. And so when you look at this, why should they be the ones, of all people, they seem to be the least likely to use that. But the point of bringing that up again is that after Israel blackmailed the United States over a threat of using nuclear weapons in 1973 against other states, then we got the 1973 oil embargo. It was only oil. It was only directed at the United States. And yet look at the global disruption that happened. Now we have we have 20% of the entire world's oil supply shut down. And it is affecting fertilizer and so many different other things. This is not a genius plan. This is not 5D chess. This is not even a good game of checkers. This is expert level stupidity. Trump and Netanyahu supposedly hold a testy call over Iran. Do you believe that? Is this a story that's been put out by the Wall Street Journal in order to help Donald Trump put some distance between himself and Netanyahu? Even as he was admitting, they told us they were going to strike Iran, and so we really had to do it along with them because we knew we were going to be struck as well. So let's send our stuff in and be part of a preemptive act of aggression. And he said, but you could say that I'm the one who did it. He immediately contradicts himself because he wants to pretend that he's the one in charge. Is that what this is about? Is this the Wall Street Journal pretending that Trump is in charge to assuage him? They've already been sued for $10 billion by Trump over this legitimate reporting of his Epstein birthday card. And so I don't know, Trump is so popular with the Israelis, he tells us. Maybe there's something else going on here.
I'm right now at 99% in Israel. I could run for prime minister, so maybe after I do this, I'll go to Israel, run for prime minister.
Please don't wait. Go right now.
This morning, I'm 99%.
6 years ago, I was up here, and I said, this is our first Jewish president.
Is that what he's been doing this past year? Is
Now he's the first
campaigning
Jewish
for Prime
president
Minister of
to
Israel?
serve two not consecutive presidencies. We thank you for everything.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money time.
And let me also give a very special thanks to someone who truly loves Israel. In fact, loves it so much that my daughter converted. My daughter converted. I didn't know this was going to happen. And Ivanka's here.
It looks like maybe Ben Shapiro there, Howard Lutnick, wearing a kippah on his head. As you look at that, ask, is it possible to imagine Donald Trump ever mocking Rebbe Schneerson, who, by the way, and this is kind of the point, is considered by some of his followers to be the Messiah? And to be completely clear, every American is allowed to decide for himself who the Messiah is, so that is not mockery of that belief. I don't personally believe it, but one of the reasons we've been able to live with people of different faiths in this country for 250 years is we don't mock other people's religious faith unless you're absolutely forced to, unless you're trying to make me attend your religious rituals or bow down before a God I don't consider God. Unless it comes to that, we kind of let each other have our own religious views. And that has worked. That's changing very, very fast, however. But ask yourself, can you imagine Donald Trump sending out a meme mocking Rebbe Schneerson? And of course, under no circumstances could you imagine that, because under no circumstances would that ever happen. Trump would not be allowed to do that, and Trump would never even consider doing it. But sending out multiple images mocking Jesus? No problem at all.
Yeah, that's right, because he's Jewish. He's Jewish. That's where his heart is. That's where his understanding is. But we're told they had a contentious call Tuesday evening. Now, you could have a contentious call. You could have your boss call you up, and he's very angry about what's going on. That could be what they're talking about. Who knows? Netanyahu was railing against any pact to end the war with Iran. He's been pushing his entire political career to annihilate Iran, and that's what he wants. He doesn't want to stop, and we got a lot of American politicians, I put the term American in air quotes, who want continual war, because that's what Israel wants, is continual war for land. And so Israel has long exposed skepticism that Iran would abide by any agreement to dismantle its nuclear work. I think we can all be skeptical of any of the fear-mongering that's been done by Netanyahu. I played several times, and I'm sure you've seen it yourself, how over 30-plus years, Iran was going to have a nuclear weapon any moment now. And again, Trump got caught in the contradictory statements. He wants to take a victory lap and boast about his accomplishments in terms of destroying Iran's nuclear facilities last summer. And yet again, he tried to pretend that there was some imminent threat, that he had to react now, because, again, the War Powers Act, which is in contradiction to the Constitution, says you don't need to have a declaration of war like the Constitution says. You can go to war if there is an imminent threat. But folks, there wasn't an imminent threat. It doesn't even pass that lower standard of the War Powers Act, which is unconstitutional and direct contradiction of the Constitution. And even Trump, as he comes back, that was obvious from the very beginning, the contradiction of what he was telling people, just like what he says about Strait of Hormuz. We're winning. We've got them under control. I need help. And if you don't help me, I'm going to do something to you, that type of thing. Well, he put all this together this last week saying, yeah, we've got eyes on this. Nobody's even going near it. But we've got to get the dust. But we don't really need to get the dust. It's really just a PR thing. It really is just a PR thing. Maybe it's a PR thing to please Israel, because Americans really don't care. We really don't care. And if you were worried about nuclear proliferation, you have given Iran and every other nation on earth, especially in the Middle East, you've given them a lot of reasons to want to acquire and to need to acquire nuclear weapons. If you were going to initiate a war of aggression on the whims of Netanyahu, they need to have some kind of a deterrent. So the only thing that matters, again, to Trump, he said, is this nuclear dust. The only thing that matters to him is the PR. He doesn't care about Americans' finances. He doesn't care about hardships. He doesn't care what happens to us economically. He doesn't care if the poor nations starve. He's got his marching orders, and he's going to march. And then there's Lindsey Graham, a whole new level of disgusting. I want to hurt them more, he said, by wrecking the oil industry. This is a guy who, when you talk about hate crimes, he should be the guy that is convicted. This guy just exudes hate and murder. Never seen anything like it until we got War Pete out there. This is an article from the New American. And again, regardless of what happens to USA or to the world, he wants to hurt Iran. That's the only thing that matters to him. Israel First GOP Senator Lindsey Graham wants Trump to order more bombing of Iran's civilian infrastructure to, quote, hurt them more. And he doesn't care that Republicans might lose the midterms because of Trump's growing unpopularity, largely because of this war. Graham told Meet the Press on Sunday that Trump is comparable to Winston Churchill because the president's telling a reporter he doesn't care about America's financial woes. So to Lindsey Graham, this is a great thing. I tell you, you're going to see that clip played over and over and over again for the elections, and you should see it. You should see the utter contempt this globalist, elitist, New York City Democrat who has put on the sheep's clothing of a Republican president. You should see exactly what Trump is. Graham said he'd happily give up both houses of Congress to keep Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Yeah, he just wants to kill as many civilians as possible. He fits perfectly with, maybe he should run for president of Israel. He could at least be their defense minister. He's fully on board with all that. Ignoring the fact that the Strait of Hormuz was open before the U.S. and Israel unprovoked attack, he claimed the longer the strait is closed, the stronger Iran gets. Yeah, you did that. You did that. You're making Iran stronger, and you're making the U.S. military empire weaker, whether you realize it or not. These people are, they're not just evil, they're stupid. Stupidly evil. He says there's nothing to suggest the people in charge now are any different in terms of the regime's goal. So there you go. There's the other justification they tried to hang this on. Yeah, we had this victory. We got rid of the Ayatollah that was there. Who replaced him? People who are more hardline. People who look at this, and even though that Ayatollah had a fatwa against building a nuclear bomb, the people coming after him said, we need a nuclear bomb now. So the only thing that's going to protect us from this in the future. And so they didn't get their regime change except to make it worse, which has been the net result of failed American foreign policy since 1953. 86, that 47 nonsense. It hasn't been 47 years. It's been 73 years. And so, again, the only regime change thing that they did was to fail to change the regime. Or you could say they changed the regime and they made it worse.
I can play the 20-second video of him calling for terrorist actions against the civilian infrastructure of Iran.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Top of the list.
So you're calling for strikes on the energy infrastructure, Senator?
I'm calling to hurt this regime. If you do the same old thing, you're going to get the same result.
Hurt them.
Hurt them more. Maybe they'll make a deal if you hurt them enough. But right now, I think they're trying to wait us out. I think they're playing games. And in the words of the president, I think they're crazy. I think he's right.
Senator,
Yeah, he's not crazy. The civilians that he's bombing are crazy. Just amazing. He said, I want to hurt them. I want to hurt them more. So Graham apparently, says the New American, doesn't believe that Iran will retaliate in kind or that purposely attacking civilian infrastructure is a war crime. But it is. And it is a crime in the face of the God that he doesn't believe in. Truly is amazing. Welker played a clip of Trump's now viral remarks that'll soon be featured in the Democrat midterm election advertisements. Asked whether he thought about the financial security of Americans, Trump said last week, not even a little bit. The only thing that matters is they can't have a nuclear weapon because, that's the only thing that matters to Bibi. So that's the only thing that matters to Trump. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody, let's just add, but Bibi, right? He's not even going to go, they're not even going near it, he said. And so how could there be an imminent threat? Again, he says it's a PR stunt. It's just BS for his war. So Graham thought that was wonderful. He said that's his Churchill moment, where he shows that he has nothing but contempt for Americans, nothing but contempt for peace and prosperity. That's Churchillian. Well, a lot of critics of Churchill would agree with that, actually. So he said, what did Churchill say? He said, whatever price we got to pay to beat Hitler, we will pay. Same with Iran. But the thing is, we are Hitler in this scenario. We are the ones that are attacking other countries that have not attacked us. And we're doing it for Lebensraum. We're doing it for living space, for Israel even. We are the ones who are backing an authoritarian state. We are the ones who are backing a state that bases its whole reason for existence on the idea that it is a master race. Israel is more like Nazi Germany than any other nation on earth today. And that's not, these are the people that are going back to World War II for analogies and so forth. There's your analogy. We're on the side of the Nazis. And everybody has seen, they have used this over and over again, the clip of the person reenacting Hitler's raging from the bunker toward the end of the war. Is that basically what Trump is doing with his ballroom? I mean, this is classic, isn't it? So the Senate, she said, Senator, you take me to my next question, because 70% of Americans in the new poll think Trump is doing a bad job on this. Bottom line, is it worth losing the midterms? It's worth losing my job, said he said. Well, let's make that happen. I agree with him. I think what he has done, what he's calling for, is worth him losing his job. I finally agree with Lindsey Graham on something. Let's get rid of him. Would you give up the House and Senate? I would. I'd give it up politically. Yeah, absolutely you would. Lindsey, by the way, as New American points out, visits Israel every 2 weeks. He says, I'm with Israel till my dying day. He says, to our dying day. I don't know who the hour is.
It's all the people that he's going to get killed for Israel.
Yeah, that's right. He says, I go back to South Carolina. I'm asking them to send their sons and daughters to the Middle East. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing?
It's another 22-second clip if you want me to play.
That's all right. Isn't it amazing that he can say this stuff and not pay a price for it? That he can say this stuff out loud. We know that's what he's doing, but he can say that and get away with it. And he's got all these people on social media that are cheering this. Getting into specifics, Graham told Fox's Shannon Bream that U.S. Marines should take Carg Island. And of course, we have reported on that as well in the past. And he says stuff like, I'm sort of tired of all this armchair quarterbacking. When people say there's going to be a lot of people who lose their lives. As a matter of fact, Scott Ritter, who was a Marine, talks about that. He says, you want to slaughter a bunch of Marines? Yeah, the Marines can do it. Question is, what cost? The lives mean nothing to him. Our economic well-being, our peace means nothing to Trump, means nothing to Lindsey Graham. No cost of ours is too high for their agenda. That's the bottom line. These elitists who have never been concerned about us. So he says, I don't want to see all this armchair quarterbacking. I think Marines can do it. I sent them in. And he said, my money is always on the Marines, except he doesn't ever do any of the fighting. As New American points out, Graham, of course, will not be among the Marines who land in Iran. He'll be cheering them on from the safety of the Fox studio, or maybe from the bunker ballroom of Trump. I look at that. The Senate Republicans are pushing back on this, and they're pretty wise to do it. Because this is yet another thing that if they join in on this, I don't see them coming back from this at all. Trump is destroying the Republican Party more so than Jimmy Carter ever harmed the Democrat Party. These people are going to, if they support Trump's bunker, it has gone from decadent extravagance to a contempt for America and an admission that he is making America unsafe. National security isn't about building bunkers for our leaders. That's what it is in their eyes. The American people, hopefully with this, will wake up and understand that finally, national security is not about our safety. It is not about our security. It's about their continuity of government It's about them being able to start wars and have a place where they can ride it out. That's precisely what this ballroom nonsense is. So, again, whenever I look at Lindsey Graham, I can hear in the background the soundtrack of Pirates of Penzance, where they have this one song, "Go Ye Heroes, Go and Die." And that's exactly what Lindsey Graham does. The Gilbert and Sullivan did a great job of this because, this is the human condition. This is what leaders of countries have always done. It's certainly what was happening during Victorian times. And when they did their Victorian operettas, they were criticizing with satire the Queen, and they were satiring the police, and they were satiring the military, and this whole idea, "Go ye heroes, go and die." And that's exactly what Lindsey Graham is doing. He just can't sing. So the U.S. government has, we look at the fact that he's calling for more civilian casualties. Go back and take a look at the long pattern of, they want to call it, in this is Reason magazine, they want to call it shifting excuses. Trump's contradictory reasons. I call that a lie. Just call it what it is. It's lies. It's one lie after the other. Contradictory reasons to avoid admitting to an obvious, terrible mistake. I don't think it was a mistake either. You got Lindsey Graham out there demanding that we kill civilians. How in the world can you say that, well, his statements are contradictory? They don't want to admit they made a mistake. They don't want to admit that they're cold-blooded war criminals who are murdering civilians. That's what they don't want to admit. Let's put a fine point on it. Sometimes I close my eyes and I recall her laugh, her voice, how she used to run at school and laugh with her friends, and how we used to dream of her future, said the mother of a 7-year-old daughter who was killed on the very first day. Trump originally told people what the CIA supposedly told him, that the school was hit by an Iranian missile, and he continued to repeat that explanation in public until just this last week. Then you have Admiral Bradley Cooper, head of the U.S. military forces in the Middle East, came out with a new explanation this last Tuesday. He said, well, it's a complex investigation. No, it's not. The school itself is located on an active Islamic cruise missile base. As Reason points out, both of these claims are lies. They're still lying. The school was bombed by a Tomahawk missile. And look, who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe these lying people from the CIA, from the Pentagon, from the Trump regime? Or are you going to believe people who told you the truth from day one? People like Scott Ritter. He said, look at this. People showed the pictures of it. He said, this is a Tomahawk missile. And as he pointed out, and as they're pointing out here, when Trump told us, I played the clip, Trump told us, he said, well, Iran's got Tomahawk missiles. A lot of countries have Tomahawk missiles. Every bit of that is a lie. There's not a lot of countries that use Tomahawk missiles. They keep those under close control. As a matter of fact, not even our precious Israel gets the Tomahawk missiles. We can't trust them, I guess. But it is kept very, very close. And it was a Tomahawk missile. And Scott Ritter pointed that out the very first day. We've had a CIA whistleblower who said, look, this is how this works. They know exactly what they did. As a matter of fact, Scott Ritter, and I played the clip for you. He said, what's even worse about this is not only did they target this, but they sent a couple of cruise missiles in. And what they did is they have one that is at a high altitude, and it is a loitering cruise missile that is photographing what is happening. And then they make the decision to send that in. And then what it does is it goes in and it doesn't just explode, but it ignites its own fuel as well. And they do it in a double tap strike. So they hit the first one in, they wait and watch to see people react. They saw people running in reaction to that first bomb. Then they send in the second one to maximize the casualties. That's the truth about what they did. And so now we're supposed to believe a couple of days ago that they didn't know about any of this stuff. It was all just a big mistake. It's very complicated, and we really did think that they had Tomahawk cruise missiles. Come on. What a bunch of murdering liars we have in the Pentagon. It's just beyond belief. The U.S. military hit the school at least twice, including with a missile aimed directly at the ground floor to collapse the building. And again, Scott Ritter said this from day one when I got the pictures of it. And he said he had been a part of, that's what he did when he was in the Marines at one point in time. He was selecting the targets. And he said, we did our best to make sure we were avoiding civilian targets. We made a mistake one time. And he said, I lived with that my entire life, and he choked up. There is no remorse from Lindsey Graham. There is no remorse from Donald Trump, the CIA, the commanders of this region. There is no repentance or remorse from them whatsoever. So who are you going to believe? I suggest that you listen to Scott Ritter, not to these people. He is months ahead of them, and he tells you the truth. Here we are months later, and they still won't tell you the truth. They'll admit to some civilian casualties. So the U.S. military hit the school at least twice. War Pete told reporters at the beginning of the war the military would fight with maximum authority, no stupid rules of engagement. Hegseth has also gutted the offices of the Pentagon that were meant to prevent and to track civilian casualties. That was one of the points that Scott Ritter made. He said one of the reasons this can happen is because he's gotten rid of the safeguards in terms of what you're going to target. He really doesn't care. I mean, this is a guy who sends in the military to execute people who are shipwrecked. A violation of morality, of God's morality, a violation of international law, violation of our law, a violation of Pentagon rules. Yeah, we don't want to have any stupid rules of engagement that are tying our hands. We're interested only in lethality, says War Pete. Well, 2 hours after this bombing, a missile hit a gym where the girls' volleyball team was practicing, killing 21 people. Oh, they don't really care about that either. I just saw that we are past the point that we need to hook up with Tony. Okay, we got him ready? Okay, good. I didn't see that either. You told me that he was ready. I'm going to take a very quick break, and we're going to, sorry about going over. I apologize to Tony for that. But we're going to get Tony on. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Whether you're feeling like the blues or bluegrass, APS Radio has you covered. Check out a wide variety of channels on our app at apsradio.com.
All right, welcome back, and joining us now, just a little bit late, and I apologize, Tony. I let the clock get away from me. I got kind of sloppy on the clock. When I was on radio, it was a really rigid discipline. Now I'm just kind of relaxed, and I ramble on and on. It's another case of that right now. But joining us now is Tony Arterburn of Wise Wolf Gold, and folks, you need to do something to prepare for it. You may not be able to build a ballroom bunker, but you can set aside some gold and silver that is real gold that you can start stacking now, and you can do that gradually. Tony will work with real people who don't have a $2 billion trust fund that they just gave themselves at taxpayers' expense. So if you don't have that kind of money, you can work with Tony, and you can gradually accumulate and dollar cost average your gold and silver purchases. And that's a good way to do it, because the market is reacting to the lies and the actions and inactions of Trump. And so it is volatile, but in the long term, we know what these trends are and where they're headed. So you can bank on that. You may not be able to bank on the day-to-day fluctuations of gold and silver, because the fluctuations of the value of the dollar and what Trump is doing to the stock market and other things because of his pronouncements. but you can dollar cost average this, and you can look with confidence at the trends. And he has set up davidknight.gold to help you to get there and let him know that you're coming through us. Thank you for joining us, Tony.
Oh, always a pleasure, David. And you don't ever have to apologize for going a little long. I listen to the show every day anyway. You know, it's, loving your breakdown of Ritter and and that disgusting episode and more needs to be talked about. But that's certainly true. And I think you may have just coined a new financial instrument, the bunker trade. Like when the government starts building more bunkers, or billionaires are building bunkers, like, hey, what are you guys doing? You tell us to everything's okay and nothing's wrong. That's one of my favorite things to watch. Now, I've been a contrarian most all of my life, but hard lessons learned. I remember 2008 going into 2009, and all the financial radios and systems and all the news channels were so optimistic about the market. And I remember thinking, this can't be right. This can't be right. Well, I was only 28, and I remember thinking, well, maybe they are right. And as soon as it turned, that's why I was feeling that it wasn't. There was something inherently broken about it. And I was running, a couple of different businesses at the time. One of them was a fuel station, and I understood the rising cost of fuel and what was happening to people at the pump, what was happening to their financial situation.
It's just peanuts.
Right. Well, I remember what happened. It was a cascading event. Like all the dominoes start to fall when one of those things increases. That's like the cost of energy, and that's directly in proportion to the price of crude. And we've seen this with these, the Iran war and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And I don't even think that we've really started to completely feel the shock that's been set into motion. I don't think it's
that's right.
I don't think that timeline has actually upon us yet. So I mean, there is some pain, but I think it's just anticipation of what actually is coming. It's kind of like the lightning strikes, but you don't feel the thunder for a bit. And I think that's what we're witnessing. And when we were talking off air, one of the things I'm watching right now, it's really interesting because we think of the Federal Reserve or the creature from Jekyll Island. We think of it as like this monolithic mind, but it has all these academics, and they have a massive payroll, and they're not of one mind. And, even Jerome Powell stayed on as one of the board of governors there. I think that seat is like up for another year and a half. So Jerome Powell will stick around, even with Warsh being confirmed. But they're facing something that I'm not sure that we've really ever truly faced before. It's the amount of debt to GDP, and then you have to factor in inflation, and then you factor in economic turmoil or uncertainty and having to cover that. And then you factor in the price of energy, which is, I mean, we can talk about it being manufactured. If it isn't on purpose, they sure want you to think it is. I mean, and they're getting that price and pricing people out of the market. So there's all these things. You call them the centrifugal forces, if you want to.
And then, of course, there's tariffs as well. I mean, Trump started throwing wrenches in. He threw all these wrenches into the economy and the world back in 2020. And then when he comes back in for a second term, he starts out right away throwing more of them in. And so, it's amazing.
That's exactly right. The tariffs are another thing. So all of these factors, and they're not all on the same page. Some are dovish, some are hawkish. Warsh was certainly brought in to be dovish and to cut rates and let the good times roll. I mean, I think that's what this administration is all about. I don't think it's for economic health either. It's for this is a transition of some kind, and there's a transfer of wealth going on. This is a high level, high stakes, behavioral changes that they're structuring through the finance monetary system. So I'm just, this is something I want to talk to you about because I'm watching this. I don't know what they're going to do because they're certainly faced with all of these issues. At the end of the day, I think the quantitative easing and the rate lowering will win out. The market right now is responding like they're going to be rational. But I think if you just lay out the scenario, you war game this out, what you find is they have to print. As a matter of fact, there was another article up on Kitco. There was an analyst talking about this, and it said, look, if you just add up the global debt of the central banks and everything else, what they're going to have to do with the prices of energy and deflationary issues, and because the prices are rising, and so they have all these deflationary issues. They're going to have to print like 50 trillion around the world. So
that explains something I've been seeing over the last week, of course, and I thought it was kind of interesting. I've seen report after report on YouTube brought up to me saying they're getting ready to cancel your mortgage. It's like, what? What is this angle that they're twisting here? I looked at a couple of them, and what they're all saying is that the government's got this massive $40 trillion balloon note that's about to pop on them. And really, how are they going to cover even the interest payments of this as it's escalating so quickly? They do it by monetizing the debt. How do you monetize the debt? Like you said, they print more money. They lower interest rates. They drive inflation up. And so what these people are saying, this is their little clickbait title. They're going to cancel your mortgage. What they were saying was, if you got a fixed mortgage, and hopefully you don't have a variable rate mortgage, but if you got a fixed mortgage, as this big inflation that is building up to kick in, as that kicks in, your mortgage is going to get cheaper and cheaper. But of course, you're going to be making more money and all the rest. Well, not if you're on a fixed income, you're not. That's why inflation always hits people on a fixed income. So, if you're retired, if you've worked your entire life and you've set money aside to provide for yourself, the government comes in and destroys that. I saw that happen in the 70s when we had the OPEC oil embargo that kicked off all kinds of price inflation and energy inflation. And so that's one aspect of it. But they were saying, so get yourself into real estate. Well, most people, if they're not in the housing market right now, it's so already inflated so much and with high interest rates that you can't get in. So what can you do? You can start to put money into gold and silver. Now, they don't tell you this, but you can start to put money into gold and silver. That's one of your only real protections against this inflation. And you can do it as much as you can afford, but you can do it piecemeal. You don't have to have some kind of a major commitment to a home mortgage to get into that. You can do it piecemeal with, again, Wise Wolf and the Wolf Pack. You can do it on a dollar cost averaging basis, but that is really what they're looking at. And so what their argument was, the government has to cancel its debt, has to cancel its mortgage. And when they do that, it's going to have the effect of canceling your mortgage effectively because of inflation. The other issue, however, is that unlike your real estate or your home, the gold and silver don't have any kind of a tax on them because they don't know where it is if you got physical. They don't know where it is or how much you've got. But they do know that about your home, and that's why I think a big fight is going to be over property taxes at the state and local level coming up, because that's what's going to drive people out of their homes. So,
I totally agree. One of the most disgusting, unconstitutional, un-American things is property tax.
Yes,
I mean it's so bizarre that it's not a part of our founding principles. It's not a part of the American experiment up until recently. This is like when the urbanization of America kicked in, and all the rest of that. So you get these ridiculous property in Texas. It's insane.
Oh yeah,
the property tax. I mean, and you never own your home.
That's right.
You never escape the state. It's absolutely bizarre.
It's just like when I talked to Donald Rainwater, who was running as Libertarian in Indiana. He had a great approach to it. Basically, just look at it as a sales tax. Treat it that way. It'd be a one-time event when you buy your home, and then you're done. You pay it one and done. You pay the 7% when you buy the house. You could fold it into your mortgage if you want, or you could pay it 1% a year for 7 years, and you're done. And all this stuff about going out and reevaluating the price of the home and everything, I saw that. I've seen that game played my entire life. They come out and, there's two ways that they can jack up the property taxes every year. One of them is by reevaluation. The other one is by changing the rates. So when they go out and they do a reevaluation, they defend that by saying, well, the real price of houses have gone up quite a bit. You should be happy about that. And we haven't changed the rate. It's like, yeah, that's right. You'll do that next year. And so next year, they change the rate, but they don't change the valuation. And they tell us we should be grateful for that as well. But that's the way this whole thing is going to roll out, isn't it?
It reminded me when I first set up Wise Wolf in Denison, Texas. I went and I had I got my own Google address, but I was inside the antique mall that my mom owns in the Main Street Mall, and it was just a booth, and there's literally just like a booth, a counter, and a little display case. And the county came in and valuated that more than the entire mall. They evaluated more than all the booths, everything combined, the entire building my business was valued more. And it was really hard to fight. As a matter of fact, I have the bill right here.
Who'd you get angry?
And I just go, what is this? And I kept wondering, what is this bill? And then you look into it, and I go take it to my mom, and I said, what is? So yeah, it's more than the entire. I mean, it's all arbitrary. It's made up. It is. Totally bizarre. And I was thinking of this whole thing about made up, and I saw an article the other day about Warren Buffett, and it said Warren Buffett, he cashed out of the market, so he's sitting on cash. And I thought about that, and think of how bizarre that is. If you had a pile of cash in 2005, and gold was $400, $500, and you just sat on that pile of cash waiting to enter the market. Are you going to wait till gold's $5,000 an ounce to buy gold? That's weird to me. We have all these ideas in our mind about what commodities are worth, based in dollars, but we never really think about the dollar. Is the dollar the same as it was last year or 2 years ago or 5 years ago? Of course it's not. It doesn't buy the same amount of goods.
That's right.
But it's weird. We just have this mental fixation on what the dollar denomination is. Like, what are these commodities denominated in dollars for anyway, if the dollar's not fixed? So it's interesting that we have this delusion.
And as you've pointed out many times, you go back and go back for decades, even a century or whatever, and look at what a certain amount of gold would buy, and it's basically the same thing. If we look at something that is a lot of these things, if it's not highly regulated, the price has actually gone down a little bit because the production sophistication goes up, and so they can make it a little bit more efficiently. However, most things are about the same that they were. It's the dollar that is changing. So it's your frame of reference. If you stand on the dollar and you stand on the gold and you look at the dollar, you can see how that is moving. Vice versa. Most people will stand on the dollar and think that gold is moving when it's actually fixed because they're going back and forth.
Well, that's right. If we go back to 1971 and gold was $35 an ounce, we went off the gold standard, which was, I was reading an article this last week, and it called it out as an experiment. We went on into a real life experiment, monetary experiment, and it was based on trust. Well, even if you take into account the amount of gold that was in circulation at the time, and I remember I had the author Alan Estrada on my show about a year ago, and he wrote a book called The History of Gold, and it's fascinating. He really went in depth with gold, but he had some figures for me he was throwing out. He said, from 1990 to now, they've had basically they doubled the gold that was in all known above ground gold was put into circulation. Like they doubled it. So there's this, and so you think about that even relative to the price that we have now. And so it's hard to do any kind of real price discovery on gold with fiat currency, because it's and especially with manipulation and how much do governments actually hold and all the rest of that. But I find that to be interesting that we continue to denominate things in dollars, and then we get really myopic on what the dollar does. And meanwhile, in the background, because we built this thing on trust, David, we built all this on, and then we have all trust is diminishing. So that's why there's de-dollarization going on everywhere.
Yeah.
This is not talked about in the news. I mean, the mainstream news is not covering just how much the rest of the globe is pulling away from the dollars. They don't want any part of that system. You can see it. I mean, even, the Iranians have set up an insurance fund that is made of Bitcoin. Did you see this for the Strait of Hormuz for the vessels there? Because that's a non-confiscatable, unsanctionable currency that you can be used right now. So all this new technology that's on and the stable coins that are backed by gold and all the rest that's happening under, in the periphery of what's happening with the United States and our dollar. So I just, this is something I think we need to communicate to people that, prices, it's funny when you watch the price of gold, like I did this morning, and I noticed that it fell below $4,500. Mm-hmm. So what I immediately did was I went in and I bought some gold Combi bars, the tiny bars for the.
It's on sale.
That's what I do.
No,
I mean,
right.
as soon as I go, okay, good. So I'll go buy another one because that's just inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And I already know that gold is at base level without the Iran war, we're at 5,000 plus an ounce base level based off of just based off fundamentals.
It's very much like what we saw when Trump got elected. There's all this hype about cryptocurrency and everything. He's saying that he's going to have an announcement about the Bitcoin reserve and stuff like that as well. He wants to keep that hype going. But everybody got interested in that. They lost interest in gold and it went on sale. And this is the same type of thing. This is a temporary situation. It is a distortion of reality. It's the Trump distortion syndrome, I guess. That's what the real TDS is. And it's a temporary thing because the long term, all these fundamentals are that drove gold up so much before the Iran war are still in place. And actually, they've been exacerbated by his actions.
You mentioned that, and there was a massive sell-off. So gold worked and it functioned as money. It's very liquid. You can get in and out of it really easy. That's what it did after the Iran war kicked off. And the fundamentals still exist. So we're still, we just become, I think, desensitized to how insane it is that gold is the price that it is right now. I mean, there's for years and years, you and I talked, and it was, 2000 or below 2000, even into 2022.
I still remember when it crossed the 2000 mark. It was like, whoa,
yeah,
it had been
the 2000 mark in 2020. Yeah, August 6, 2020, and I was hosting your show, down in Austin. When it crossed, that's the first time it hit 2000, and then pull back from different times, pulling back. But that all the all-time highs that we hit in the last year, do you remember that? I mean, just 30 or 40 all-time highs, new price discovery, because the monetary system based off trust and old institutional trust is falling apart, and it's being rebuilt. They're rebuilding it on gold, David. I mean, that's and there will be some, I think, room for silver in the monetary system, probably room for Bitcoin too. There was an interesting analysis. I don't know if you saw this, but there's a theory that a lot of the tech is about to be sold off, a lot of the tech stock, and tech is going to be sold off, and silver will be purchased physically. Physical silver will be the next tech stock, or it will receive the lion's share of the liquidation of a lot of this tech stock, because I think the economy, especially tech and other things, are in real trouble, because this isn't the environment is not one of trust. It's not one of certainty, innovation, all that stuff. Yeah, you have the data, AI data centers, and that's another thing. But I'm talking about just tech in general. Is in real trouble. And I think that a lot of that stuff's going to be, it's overpriced.
Yeah. So overpriced doesn't work well.
400 times earnings.
The enshittification of all of it, because it seems like the more they tinker with it, the worse things get. It's like we're not seeing any big useful revolution in the technology.
No. And we've definitely stalled out in a lot of areas. Other things seem, there is some improvements in some things, but most of it, in general, there's entropy. That's the second law of thermodynamics. So things run down, and I think there's entropy there. And there'll be a renaissance in it someday. But right now, with the environment of the entire global environment economically looks bizarre, and I just start looking at where's everything going. The trends to me look like, okay, we're going to shift away from the dollar. The world's going to reset the monetary system. It's going to be backed by something that's probably going to be gold or silver, or it'll be bimetallic. It'll be something based off that, because you can see it and hold it. They're building facilities to do just that, and it won't be paper anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a reinstitution of sound money and trust in order for the economic engine of the world to keep running.
And when you look at what they are focusing on, they are so hell-bent on making sure they've got a digital ID for everybody, so hell-bent on making sure they've got eyes on everybody. They want to be omniscient and omnipresent and omnipotent. They want to be God. And people are going to realize this big brother society that they're putting out there. One of the things that you're going to have in order to be able to survive is something that is physical and outside of their control. And so come to that realization sooner, because the sooner you realize that and start preparing for that, the better, because everybody is eventually going to get to that point. I mean, we look at the prohibition of privacy, right? They can't prohibit it. What they'll do is they'll create a black market for privacy, just like the drug war. They couldn't get rid of drugs. They created a black market for drugs.
Right.
And so you're going to get a black market for privacy. So start preparing for that right now. I remember talking to a sheriff out in Arizona, and he was talking about how he had worked in law enforcement in other countries. And he said, Americans just don't understand how common black markets are everywhere, except in the United States. You know, we haven't had a black market because we haven't had the kind of corruption that is now coming, the kind of control and totalitarian government that is now coming. But he goes, pretty much in most of the world, the majority of the world, there is a thriving black market, and people have to be able to operate in that black market in order to be able to survive. And that's what's really coming. And it's going to be priced, I think, in physical gold, physical silver, and things of that nature.
I agree 100%. And, we're just not there yet. It's on the horizon. And I think it's going to be an outcropping and a consequence of the financial decisions that are being made right now at the top, which are disastrous.
Yes.
I mean, it's going to create, and definitely they want a surveillance state. They want to use that. The excuse of a bank meltdown, a bank run, to usher in some sort of surveillance currency. And you and I have talked about this. Maybe it's not a CBDC per se, but it's a public-private partnership with one of the stablecoin system. And then they got the Clarity Act supposedly going to be passed soon. I know it's out of committee. I haven't got an update on that.
Yeah.
But and there's probably some good things in there too. But that to me is the path that they want to take. And they're certainly not doing anything to bolster the current system, which I'm going to bet on chaos. And I look at the Fed has all these academics like we discussed. I think a lot of them are living in the past, and they've got normalcy bias, and they're institutionalized, and they're going to be looking at rebolstering the influence of the Fed. I don't know. I think it's all creative destruction at this point. I think they're going to just turn on the printer, and it's some eventual timeline. We're just going to see, like Larry Lepard wrote the book, The Big Print. I think it's going to be the biggest injection of cash and currency in the history of the world, and it'll come here very soon. I mean, I think probably before the end of the decade, in order to usher in something else. And it won't be the dollar you grew up with. It's going to be something else, and that will create parallel systems, which is great. I might be operating in a parallel system. I had a guy come in yesterday, goes, well, I guess you probably won't be in business, in a few years. Eventually they'll come in and just take all the gold and silver. And I think, well, maybe, I'm definitely not going to give it up willingly. I don't think I'll go quietly. But maybe not, there's, and different states have, I just saw Alaska put gold and silver as legal tender. So, I mean, there's stuff happening on local and state levels that are, I think, very helpful. So it's not all just one thing. And we've seen how incompetent our rulers are. I don't know. I mean, they can have some pretty scary technology.
Yeah, when you look at what they're doing, it is not in their best interest. You know, I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the influence and the power of the American empire, which I do not support. And Trump is burning that in the same way that Biden burned the American hegemony on the financial system. And so they're by using these levers in a wicked way, they're basically burning this stuff. And they don't have control over other countries like they've got control over people domestically. So there's some things that they're used to getting away with doing whatever they want. And how many times have we heard Trump say that? I can do whatever I want. But they can't do whatever they want and get away with it when there's other countries out there that are going to react to that. And so they're burning their own power base down.
Yeah. You get like this monstrous empire, militaristic police state that does DEI. You know, it's like, well, you got all these bad intentions. You got a tyranny state, but you just can't find the people to do it. I mean, you think the people at TSA are going to be able to really create the perfect police state? I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. These are people who invade Iran and don't think that they're going to close the Strait of Hormuz. They're not playing chess at all, not even one dimension.
It's so true. I remember I've talked to you about this before, but I mean, I go back to the 90s and I remember just driving with my dad, talking to him about, foreign policy. And he would say, well, if you hit Iran, they're going to close the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, I knew this in just 97, just like talking to the old man. I don't know, and then they have all these war peed. And we didn't even get into the fact that, the Secretary of War just went into campaign against the sitting congressman.
Yeah,
that's never happened.
Because he's one of the few people to stand up to these undeclared wars, eternal wars, and all the rest of the stuff. So yeah, it is unprecedented, isn't it? And War Pete is a piece of work. He truly is. Yeah, I keep thinking as you were talking about, what has happened to the dollar. I think the really interesting eye opener was I played with. I saw this article about the very first Jeopardy winner. And she won only $345, and that was back in 1960. So they were talking about how much this recent winner got. He got like $19,000 or something. He said, well, because of the value of the dollar, she won that in 64. And so today that'd be worth about $3,900, right? Because the way they calculate inflation, I thought, well, how do you calculate the inflation in terms of gold? And so I looked at it because in 1964, we'd not had the Bretton Woods 2, so it was fixed at 35. And so if she had taken that $345 and bought that equivalent amount of gold, it worked out she would have today about $45,000. So they're not even, when they tell you the inflation numbers, it's like everything else they do, whether they're talking about the labor statistics and the unemployment rate or the inflation, it's all a lie. As Audi says of Modern Retro Radio, it's all a lie. And every government statistic is a lie like that. So the devaluation of the dollar has been far more severe than they say in their CPI.
Well, it's same statistics in the minimum wage, David. To go back to 1964, I think the minimum wage was like $1.25 or something like that.
Yeah.
If you take $1.25 in silver quarters, that's about, let's see. That's about $60 or more, right?
I should have my dad pay me in silver dollars back then, I guess. I remember working for $1 an hour for my dad in his business. He paid me minimum wage, and I guess I was overpaid.
How little? Yeah, I had the same thing. Used to go work for my dad at his stores, the convenience stores, and he'd pay me less than the people that work there, but that's okay. I'd get a check, but it'd be less than that. I still got a check. But I learned a lot.
Of course, there were some fringe benefits. He did give me a house and food, so he didn't give that to the other people as well. There's thing. That, so thanks, Dad. Appreciate that. But it's good to learn the value of a dollar, isn't it? But a lot of people still don't understand what the value of the dollar is because it's evaporating so quickly.
Well, that's true. And this is part of the cycle of history that we're in. We're not going to be able to escape this. There's nobody that's going to come and fix this current system. in any meaningful way, it's up to us. I mean, we, at the end of the day, we are in charge of our own financial destiny. There's always these outside forces, and there's going to be pain at the pump, and there's going to be pain at the grocery store, and all the rest of that stuff. And I've even noticed, we don't have the same kind of volume people are selling to us, but then the same kind of volume people buying. I think people are just right now, and it's completely understandable, not sure what to do, or their capital's tied up, and they're unsure of the next move. And we've had so much volatility in the metals markets too. There's just the fallout from that is still going on. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're in charge of this, and only us. Nobody's coming to save any of us.
That's right.
What Washington is doing.
Yeah, there's an interesting bill that's been put in Canada. You've got a conservative MP in the Conservative Party of Canada, very concerned about central bank digital currency. This is an article from LifeSite News. I looked at that and I thought, do they not realize the danger of stablecoin, the private version of this? And but they do understand that. But as they point out in this article, it's got basically no chance of being passed. So don't look to politicians to do the right thing. Don't look at them to preserve even cash. I mean, this guy sees it there. We've had people like Frank Nicely here in Tennessee, who used to be a senator, and he understood it. He understood where this is going. He was trying to set up structures to make it easy for people to use gold and silver as legal tender, and to try to get the state to have some gold reserves so they'd be able to continue to do business when it all hits the fan. But those types of people are few and far between, and they're gone for the most part. When I look at this, Tony, I made a note to myself that, it's not really going to be the Federal Reserve that's going to be manipulating this stuff. It's really going to be Lutnick and Trump. They have figured out that rather than having a central bank digital currency, they could do the digital currency themselves, and they could make money with it. And so I suggest that what we call it is, instead of the Federal Reserve, we could have it called the Epstein Reserve, because that's really what we're going to wind up getting from this Epstein crowd of Lutnick and Trump. They're going to set up a new monetary system that'll surveil us, that will block us from doing things they don't want us to do, and it will make them rich at the same time. The Epstein Reserve.
I like that. That's I think more apt, and let's name things what they should actually be called. I'm in agreement with that, David. Finally,
yeah. Maybe instead of billions of dollars to renovate the Federal Reserve building, maybe they could just take over the former home of Jeffrey Epstein and Lutnick. They're right next to each other. It's probably, you combine them, it's pretty big, probably, in terms of square footage. So,
I mean, we should just put Epstein on the 100 and just get it over with.
That's right.
At this point,
do a commemorative coin,
or put Epstein on that $1 trillion platinum coin that the Treasury was going to make. You remember they were going to make a platinum coin that was, and just nominated a trillion and just give it to just to pay off the debt. That'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anything that's changing at Wise Wolf in terms of any activities or specials or anything like that are going on there?
No specials or anything really. I've neglected to do that the last few weeks. I'm just trying to get a handle on this market. As I've discussed, it's a crazy volatility, and in figuring out our next move, I think really just keeping supply open, but always the same deals, for davidknight.gold, and you can put in promo code David, or you can put in promo code 1776 and get some free silver with any Wolfpack purchase. And then we also have, for anyone who's interested, we have an affiliate program. We pay 1%. So if you've got an affiliate link and you share that, you get 1% on every sale, but you get that every time they renew as well. So I don't just pay one time. So if somebody's got a membership through your link, and it takes only like 5 minutes to sign up. So I've got that available. You can email us through davidknight.gold, and we'll send you an affiliate link. And I haven't pushed that really hard. We pay out like once a month or so, I think. And so if you wanted to make some extra money, and it's easy, we just we make it easy for you to share the link, and people can go to Wolfpack and purchase, and we'll know it came from you.
That's
so
great.
Yeah, anything like that for is, I think, valuable for a little extra money, especially in the face of rising prices everywhere.
Oh, yeah. And we didn't even get to India and Turkey. You know, Turkey is having some issues, and both of them are, we talked about the fact that this slow-moving train that is headed towards us has really not arrived yet, but it has for them. Both of them are heavy exporters of energy, of fuel, and they're feeling this already. And so in India, they are the second largest buyer of gold, and most of that is being done by individuals. And so the Indian government is basically telling them, don't do it. And I don't know if they've made any prohibitions about that or not, but Turkey has been selling their central bank gold, and India is trying to do everything they can to make it at least discourage, if not prohibit, the purchasing of gold in India. So this is working out to our advantage in terms of dropping the price of gold temporarily. And so I think it's not yet another one of these buying opportunities for the long term, I think.
Well, it is crazy, and I think it might have something to do with their national currency. But right before this, about a year ago, they made it to where you could use silver in India as collateral for home loans and other things, and for business loans, which they hadn't before. That you could use gold but not silver, and then they put a tariff on it. So I think the last time I checked, it was like 6 weeks or so of customs has held up metals for individual buyers in India. So the premiums internally in India have skyrocketed.
Because they don't produce any internally. So all of the gold is imported, just like all their oil is imported, and a lot of their food as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good indicator of, you fast forward the clock, 60 months from now, and the West is probably going to be looking very similar to that as people scramble to get out of fiat and into metals.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when it happens here, that event will show just how fragile the metal system is in the United States of America.
Yeah.
People don't realize they can pick up the phone and get whatever you want, and you can't. I mean, it's right now. I think I can get just about anything, but it's the buying pressure is not there.
Yes,
so
I agree.
You add the another 2 or 3 or 4% of the population, we're in some real trouble. There's not enough real to house all the fake.
Yeah,
let's put it that way.
That's right. Everything is fake, and everything is pretty much a lie that they tell us, isn't it? It truly is. But again, I've known Tony for a very long time. I would highly recommend him. He's always been great to deal with, and it's good to know the person that you are trusting to give you a backup system here. He's the guy packing your parachute, so I would trust him for that. Thank you so much, Tony. I appreciate it. Always great to have you on, and thank you for supporting the program. Really do appreciate that. We're going to take a quick break, folks. And when we come back, we're going to continue with the news. And I want to get into some details about this corruption that is happening in the Trump administration. I talked about it yesterday, but the details are even more astounding when you look at what is happening. And so we're going to talk about that when we come back. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Tell Alexa to add the APS radio skill and have access to the best channels anywhere. From country to blues, classic hits to news, APS Radio curates incredibly diverse playlists for you to enjoy. Get details at apsradio.com.
Well, what shall we do with the drunken Hexeth? What shall we do with the drunken Hexeth? What shall we do with the drunken Hexeth? Early in the morning, way, hey, and up she rises, way, hey, and up she rises, way, hey, and up she rises. Early in the morning, he was drinking on the Foxette before the showtime. He was drinking on the Foxette before the showtime. He was drinking on the Foxette before the showtime. Early in the morning, carried out the strip club in his uniform. Carried out the strip club in his uniform. Carried out the strip club in his uniform. Early in the morning. Hey! He denied all the misconduct at the hearing. He denied all the misconduct at the hearings. He denied all the misconduct at the hearings. Early in the morning. Crooked Pulp Fiction as Ezekiel 25:17. Quoted Pulp Fiction as Ezekiel 25:17. Quoted Pulp Fiction as Ezekiel 25:17. Early in the morning. Hey! The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides. Early in the morning, my call sign is Sandy One, not the Lord up above. My call sign is Sandy One, not the Lord up above. My call sign is Sandy One, not the Lord up above. Early in the morning, now he's running the Department of War. Now he's running the Department of War. Now he's running the Department of War. Early in the morning, what shall we do with the drunken Hexeth? What shall we do with the drunken Hexeth? What shall we do with the drunken Hexeth? Early in the morning, put him in the brig till he finds the real Bible. Early in the morning.
I'm David Knight, and I endorse that message. That's from a guy named Drew Ponder. And thank you. I think it was Kevin who sent that to me. He said, this is great. And I agree with him. There's a catchy little tune and a lot of truthful satire in that, isn't there? And of course, he's not just drinking early in the morning. He's also lying early in the morning. He's always lying. One of the things that we were talking about before I brought Tony on was all the different lies that they've told about the attacks on civilians and things like that. Of course, one of the other attacks on civilians and bridges, they blew up that bridge, which wasn't even finished. And yet they said when they killed civilians who were picnicking on one side of it, they said it was being used, this unfinished bridge was being used to transport missile parts. Oh, okay. So they're transporting missile parts on an unfinished bridge. Yeah, I think they didn't finish their thoughts about how they're going to excuse the lies about that, just like their lies about ICE and all the rest of the stuff. We don't target civilians. Iran does, said Hegseth. And when he was asked about this, he said, you're playing gotcha questions. This is the strategy, by the way, Pete, that didn't work out too well for Pam Bondi. Never answer a question, just attack them personally. That's the response that you see over and over again from the military. And of course, at this point, as one congressman who was questioning him said, even if a further investigation is necessary to figure out prevention methods, can you at least at this moment acknowledge that a mistake was made and that we were responsible for it? It's something that we didn't want to do, and it's something that we don't want to repeat? No, he will not make that statement, right? In the same way that, when we look at the people asking Trump about his faith, no, I don't have anything I have to regret. I don't have many mistakes at all. Well, try telling that to God when you stand before him. This is it's absolutely amazing to see the arrogance and the hardness of these people who continue to go down this path. It truly is amazing. Before I get into the next article here, I want to talk a little bit about some of these comments here. Star Barkley, thank you very much for the tip. Thank you. It says the world needs waves of grain, not waves of drones. Everyone have a great weekend. Yeah, absolutely true. We used to write songs about that, America, but now it's all just about the military. Trump is 100% about the military as he builds his dirty little bunker. And it's not little, and of course it's gilded, I guess, instead of dirty. Star Barkley also says his daughter rejected Christ. That's right. And so has he, and they boast about it. That's their issue, but it tells us something about it. I think when we look at his this last week, the arrogance that has come out about all this stuff, when he says, well, I really don't care about Americans' finances. And, that gas price that's gone up so much, 50 to 80%, depending on the type of gas that you're looking at, that's peanuts. That's peanuts. That kind of arrogance, when you look at what his base of support is a working class guy. When are the MAGA people ever going to come to the realization that this guy is not a blue-collar billionaire? He is an elitist Davos billionaire. That's where he introduced his Board of Peace grift. And it is a grift. It's just one grift after the other. I got fired for calling his, Save America thing and Alex Jones's Stop the Steal. I called them grifts because they were. And hopefully people can see that they were at this point in time. Now he has expanded this way beyond that. I mean, the Save America grift that Trump did only netted him about $250 million. He's going to get a lot more than that from this 1776, $1,776 million that he's giving to himself. That's just amazing. Can you imagine what the commercials are going to be about that? I can think of a few commercials I'd like to run about that. Angio Sonita, thank you. He'll go to Israel to run from the law for all the corruption that he's doing. Yeah, maybe they'll give him, what do they call that? Aida or something, or Ayala or something. Well, it's what Jonathan Pollard and pedophiles get that even in Israel. So yeah, he'd fit right in. They give, if you're a pedophile and you can get away from the law, you can go to Israel if you're Jewish and they'll bring you in. Perhaps Miriam Adelson could fly him in just like she flew in Jonathan Pollard, and Trump could run down the steps and kiss the ground right in front of Benjamin Netanyahu like Jonathan Pollard did. Gard Goldsmith, Trump, before dropping JCPOA, said the strait is open. Iran has a fatwa against nuclear weapons, is in the NPT, open to inspection. Trump drops JCPOA. This is what was agreed to with the Obama administration that the conservatives always criticized. Then he accuses Iran of evil. Then he bombs and kills thousands of people. Strait is closed. Iran has an incentive to make nuclear bombs. Yeah, everybody does, by the way. Thank you. Gard Goldsmith, Liberty Conspiracy. You're absolutely right. And real Jason Barker of Knights of the Storm says, reminder that Tony has his show directly following this one. Thank you. I wrote that down. I was about to forget it anyway. Yeah, Tony's show comes right after this. He's got an Arterburn transmission. You can find him on Twitter as well as on Rumble. Thank you for that reminder, Jason. Appreciate it. Skunk Hollow Rose Garden says, nobody supplied me with more Christmas gifts than Wise Wolf Gold. That's a good point. Yeah, people who have taken the long view and invested in that have seen very good returns up to this point. And I think they'll continue to see that. Real Octospook said, most people never own a home, so no matter what they do, except win a lottery. And then the question is, unless we do something about the property taxes, nobody's going to be able to keep your home. I've been saying this for a long time. The property taxes in Texas were so expensive. And I could see they were building one school after the other to bring in and educate children from other countries. And I said, you got all these dreamers coming in. What about the American dream of owning a home? Nobody's concerned about that. Trump is not concerned about it. He's not doing anything to try to make home ownership more affordable. As a matter of fact, when he artificially lowers the interest rates The people who are putting out the mortgage money, which is a much longer term, are looking at this and saying, well, we've got to raise our rates because with him lowering the shorter term rates, that's going to drive up inflation for the longer term. So far, their manipulation of the interest rates has had exactly the opposite effect. As they lower them, mortgage rates, 30-year mortgage rates go up.
And of course, with inflation, because the property taxes are essentially an unrealized capital gains tax, as inflation goes crazy, the value of everyone's home is going to skyrocket in terms of dollar value.
That's right.
So unless your job is keeping up with inflation, you will not be able to afford that increase.
That's right. And why is it that people, people rightfully push back on Democrats who wanted to do a tax on unrealized capital gains? They wanted to look at the value of the assets when you hadn't sold them and tax you on that. Why don't the conservatives and Republicans talk about that when it comes to property taxes? It's exactly the same thing as Lance pointed out. It's a tax on unrealized capital gains. Front Porch Media says illegal alien amnesty with a free house for dreamers. That's for the next administration. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's preparing this stuff, and it is a left-right march of tyranny. Guard Goldsmith, I love how politicians claim we can't handle our lives, but we are the government. That's right. Maybe that's why we're such a mess, right? Yeah, the question is to even whether or not, what happened in this election with Massey. We're going to take another look at that as well. Don't Frag Me, Bro said, like Black Mirror depicts, eventually the social credit and carbon tax scoring is coming. A pretext to murder you by denied access. Yeah, and I've already, that lesson has been driven home with me, being silenced on all these different platforms, as well as being kicked off of PayPal and Venmo. And when they did that, that was basically our lifeline to financial support. We didn't have anything else that was happening at the time. We now have several different ways that you can support the program. But at that point in time, I would say probably about 90% of our money was coming in on PayPal, and they just cut me off. Wouldn't give me an explanation. I spent 2 hours on the phone with a guy, and he said, he kept looking through this, and he said, the only thing I can find, and there's no reason given, it just says terminate this account immediately. And that's what you're going to wind up with a digital currency. Don't Frag Me, Bro also says data centers have been put in play for decades, or have been in play for decades. They're just getting bigger in preparation for the social credit scoring, carbon tax, Internet of Everything for full spectrum dominance. Yeah, I remember talking about the one in Bluffdale, Utah, out in the middle of the desert, putting up this massive computer center to store everything for everybody, waiting for the day, which is now here, where they can go through and data mine all that. And so people were criticizing that in Utah back at that point in time, saying, look at this. Look at how many hundreds or thousands of homes this thing is using and the amount of water that it's using in a desert area. Now they're getting ready to do it with the biggest data center anywhere. They just had 3 county commissioners overruled all the people in that area. So again, about this video, CJ Prumble says the Strait of More Booze. That's probably why he wanted to go there, right? I'm all for that. If it's Strait of More Booze, let's do it. So, as we look at this election, and somebody made the point in the comments yesterday, they said, so we see Trump's popularity taking all new lows, and yet we're supposed to believe that he has so much clout that he was the one who defeated Thomas Massey. I don't see it that way. It's Zionist money, and I said that election was about whether or not we're going to be controlled by a foreign government. And I still believe that's the case, even more so now. When you look at what is happening in the latest polls, Trump's approval rating is down to 34%. His disapproval rating is at 58%. The pollster noted that his approval had dropped from the survey taken last month. His approval had dropped by 4%. His disapproval increased by 3%. And it's the lowest approval rating that he has had during this second term of office. And so as we're looking at all of that, I'm seeing all these posts on social media. The numbers don't whisper, they scream, writes Gerald Wayne. He said, Massey gained votes. The turnout doubled. His opponent's vote didn't grow. It exploded. In 2024, his opponent vote total was 12,664. In 2026, it went from 12,000 plus to 57,822, a 356% surge. Total turnout jumped from 52,000 to 105,000. He says, well, maybe it's real, or maybe every ballot checks out. If so, then prove it. An audit is not fear. An audit is verification. And he points out, he says, just call the Kentucky Secretary of State, call the county election boards, demand a full audit of the Republican primary vote. A ballot count, a chain of custody, machine logs, absentee totals. This is what people were always saying about the election with Trump. Why is it that this crowd is now just fine when this type of thing happens? And look, it is the mail-in voting as well. That was a key issue. The mail-in voting was, in terms of absolute numbers, it was the margin of victory for special ed. And Trump himself says you can't count on mail-in voting. He said it is mail-in balloting is crooked.
It's a very basic thing. It's called Save America, actually, and that's what it is. It's having to do with voting and voter ID.
Except you're the one who did the vote by mail.
Citizenship. We added a couple, no men playing in women's sports. We don't want that. Nobody does. I think it's about a 98% issue. We want no transgender mutilation of our children. Very basic things that you wouldn't even think we'd be talking about 15 or 20 years ago. But for the voting aspect of it is we want voter ID, very important. You have to have identification and you have to have proof of citizenship. We don't want mail-in ballots. We don't want to have ballots coming from all different corners of the world. We want to have it accurate, and you can't do that with mail-in ballots. Actually, Jimmy Carter headed a commission years ago. He said mail-in ballots no good. We're the only country in the world that's doing mail-in ballots. And that would exclude, though, our military or people that are ill, people that are...
We're the only country that's doing mail-in ballots. Who started that? Oh, that was a Trump precedent. Had to keep that panic going for the pandemic, so he did that. And then he raised $250 million telling everybody it was corrupt. Yeah, you know it was corrupt. And you knew that when you did it, didn't you? And so we're supposed to believe that the mail-in ballots, massive number, over 10,000 mail-in ballots in this election with Massey, and that was the margin of difference. We're supposed to believe those are all real. We're supposed to believe that even though Massey's vote totals went up significantly, turnout doubled, and his opponent's votes went up 356%. His went up by 20%. And we're supposed to believe that all of the elderly people who support him, again, as over 55 was where the demographic where he had his support. We're supposed to believe that all those people are hardcore Republicans, Fox News watchers. They never voted before. They turned out for the first time this time. Yeah, maybe it's real, maybe it's not. Just take a look at this. This is what, when you spend $25 million for a victory, this is what the massive support that you build up with looks like at a victory party. Look at this. It's like one of Ed Gallrein's campaign events. Just a smattering of people. Yeah, you spend $25 million for a victory party, for a victory, and this is the only party that you get. Yeah, I'm calling BS on this. I really don't believe this. I think it is as crooked as it comes, and I think the vote totals are just the final cherry on the top of rigged elections. Usually the elections are rigged by not allowing people on the ballot, but of course he was already on the ballot. Yes.
And Massey had a huge crowd at his concession speech.
Yeah, exactly. He lost, and that's a good point. He lost, and he had a crowd that was many times bigger than the guy who won. So, unfortunately for Trump, his 250th anniversary coin will not arrive by July the 4th. You see, here's an example. We always talk about Trump. Is it incompetence or is it malice and criminality that's involved? Well, in this particular case, it's incompetence. He wanted to commemorate himself with a 24-karat gold commemorative coin that would have his face on it. That will not be ready in time for the anniversary on the 4th of July. And so it's kind of interesting. These coins are going to have $90,000 worth of gold in them each. And there's only going to be 47 of them minted. So I wonder how much it's actually going to cost for people to get. Can you imagine all the billionaires are going to want to go out there to virtue signal to him that they have bought a coin with his image on it? Federal law generally...
He can't mint 47 coins in, however long this is planned.
Yeah. Yeah, you could have Scott Bessent out there hammering them out by hand, right? But no, he hammered out a lie about all this. Federal law prohibits living presidents from appearing on U.S. currency. But Scott Bessent has said, well, this is a commemorative coin. It's not really currency, so that doesn't apply. It's just insane what they're doing with all of this. And when we look at the massive corruption that I touched on yesterday. Yeah.
To be fair, that's hardly the place to draw the line as far as corruption is concerned. With all the many ways in which they've trampled on the Constitution, I don't think they're suddenly going to start caring about the little obscure clause saying you can't put a face of a living president on currency.
That's right, yeah. But it is the type of thing that we see totalitarian dictators do, isn't it? They build statues to themselves. They put their image on the coins. This is just as natural as can be for somebody who has the attitude of a tyrant. From ballroom to drone empire, Trump's fortress for the elite. This is from the New American. They point out a year ago, Trump promised America a, quote, much-needed ballroom in the White House. Now it's becoming a bunker, a drone hub, a military facility, and possibly the safest doomsday party venue in human history. They probably won't have any more people than were at that victory party for Ed Gallrain allowed in when it hits the fan. And this is what the guy is doing. You should pay attention when the president starts prepping. That's a real danger signal, isn't it? It's one thing when the billionaires start building themselves bunkers like Zuckerberg and many others have done. It's another thing when the guy who's got his finger on the button starts building doomsday bunkers, isn't it? So it began as approximately $200 million. It was going to be paid for by private donors. Then it grew to 300, then to 400. Then it made the leap to $1 billion, and they pushed it off on all of us. We will pay as usual to protect him. So they dumped this into our lap like a hot potato. Or maybe you could think of it as dumping it into our wallets. That's really what they've dumped it. Then came the highly suspicious shooting at the White House on April 26th, says the New American. Was that the trigger to sell this? I still don't believe this Butler, Pennsylvania thing, not for a minute. Trump's ear looks just fine to me. And I don't think if he was hit and really bleeding from that because of bullet hit it, I think you would see a notch there. The cartilage does not grow back, as we have said many times, as many people have pointed out. It is a lie. Every time you look at his face, you can see the lie. It's right there. According to the latest update from the president, the ballroom will now double as a militarized command post for what Trump calls the greatest drone empire that you've ever seen. What in the world is a drone empire? Well, we'll take a look at that. But again, his speeches do drone on and on forever, but that's not what he's talking about. This is something else. What he described was not merely a ballroom. It was a hardened military complex, much of it located underground with a ceremonial hall on top. Isn't that a perfect metaphor for Trump? He's got this facade up above him that the public sees, but you really don't see his underground agenda. Maybe the metaphor is this guy who is this gilded elitist who really has turned completely into a bunker mentality warmonger. So what began as an indulgence for this corrupt and decadent elite has become a militarized extravaganza of bankruptcy. This goes down very deep, said the president, and his corruption does as well. They're already 2 floors down. That is down about 6 stories deep. That's the big stuff. Normally, when you build ballrooms, you build it flat. And New American says that's true. Normally, a ballroom does not require an underground military nerve center. And as far as the drone empire goes, the underground complex is only half of the story. Trump then turned to the roof, and he was doing this presentation for reporters. He said, on top of the roof, we're going to have the great drone empire, greatest that you've ever seen. He said the roof will be sealed, it'll be drone-proof, it'll be built for military use. He said with absolutely nothing but strength on it, whatever that means. I just love the way he expresses himself, don't you?
We're only going to use strength to build this bunker.
No weakness allowed, right? He says, I hate to use the word snipers, but we have great sniper capabilities built for our snipers. Not enemy snipers, our snipers. We'll be there to kill you if you get close to it.
Man, how do you start a sentence by saying you hate to use a word and then use it that many times?
The White House ballroom, says the New American, once sold as a private gift to future presidents, is now being presented as the bastion of a protective drone empire. And the question is, to protect Washington from whom? And why does a president who built much of his brand on a promise of peace now sound as if he's preparing the Capitol for war? And bottom line, folks, for domestic war. He knows as well as we should think about the fact that his military adventurism, always the United States has been protected because of the oceans we have on the side, because of our Navy and that type of thing, so that we could not have foreign countries attack us with this. And yet the technology is making that possible now, making it very possible. That's why he needs and wants this fortification. But there's not going to be any protection for us. It's just like that book I talked about, Raven Rock, the plan to save themselves and let the rest of us die. That's what the ballroom represents. It represents a decadent elite protecting themselves while they put the rest of us in jeopardy, a jeopardy that is absolutely uncalled for and unnecessary. And so they point out that said hardship is easier to dismiss if you're behind reinforced glass and 9,000 pounds of concrete. New American says one reporter asked whether the president had any initiatives to address rising prices at the pump. Because he brings reporters in, he wants to brag about his bunker that he's building. Trump just waved it off. He said, I had gas down to $1.85 in Iowa. I was in Iowa. The station had it at $1.85, but I was down to, in many cases, less than $2 a gallon. Everything he said was going well. The stock market had reached a new high. As a matter of fact, we didn't have to worry about the Epstein documents because the Dow was at 50,000, said Pam Bondi. Are you seriously asking me about pedophiles when the Dow is at 50,000? Well, then he broke everything, and he broke it for Israel. So he said, you want to see the world exploded? He says, we got to fight Iran. All the rest of this stuff at the gas pumps and everything, that's all just peanuts, he said. That's going to be another comment that comes back to haunt him, or at least it should. And so he's prepping for what he is causing. Last week, Trump also said he didn't think about Americans' financial situation, not even a little bit. He later defended that remark. He said, that was the perfect statement. When people say, you want to walk that back? Oh, no, it was the perfect statement. And so the New American says, so there you have it. Americans get higher prices, ballooning debt, an increasingly unsafe world caused in part by America's interventionist foreign policy. But the elites get an impenetrable fortress in the heart of Washington. Somewhere in there is a modern version of Let Them Eat Cake, only with more concrete and more snipers for the powerful, and more sacrifice demanded from everyone else. The ballroom story is no longer mainly about taste or cost, low taste, high cost, or about Trump's appetite for spectacle. It is now about what power builds when it fears the consequences of its own decisions. Now think about that. I want to repeat that. This is about what power builds when it is fearful of the consequences of its own decisions. Yeah, you see, folks, as I've said many times, national security is not for you. National security is for them. National security is for continuity of government. We've got to have continuity of government. That means that we've got to do everything to protect the lives of these people who get us involved in these wars. They're the ones who must be protected by all means. It's you and I whose lives are expendable, not theirs. Hardened sanctuaries for the ruling class. Yeah, our institutions have been hardened as well, haven't they? They have been so corrupted that they are as hardened as his physical bunker is hardened physically. Leaders who know that they have somewhere to hide may think differently about danger than those who do not. More cavalier about foreign adventurism and war is what follows, dismissing rising prices as just peanuts, and they may frame public hardship as a temporary inconvenience while they quietly prepare deeper rooms, thicker glass, stronger roofs. The question is, can a political class that retreats behind fortresses still understand the country outside of them? No, they can't. As a matter of fact, they are distant and their concerns are not the same. Again, it's just like, I don't understand how he gets away with this. It was a big deal when George H.W. Bush went to the grocery store, for example, and he saw the scanners that were there back in, I guess it was the 90s. And it's like, oh, what is that? You know? And he was truly amazed at it. It's the kind of technology that all of us plebes lived with all the time. And yet, you know, people talked about the fact of how out of touch he was. Maybe this is the first time he's ever been in a grocery store. He's got people who do the shopping for him. So they don't understand what we're going through at all. And they have utter contempt, not just for the rule of law, not just for the Constitution, not just for justice. They have utter contempt for us, every aspect of our lives, and they have contempt for our lives themselves. So the Senate Republicans are saying, sorry, we don't have the votes to fund this ballroom. They don't want to put that Trump albatross around their neck. And so Trump is throwing a temper tantrum fit about that. And the Trump regime says that, well, we're still going to build that 250-foot arch. And we're going to do it without Congress's approval or without the approval of the Constitution either. Because you got to ask yourself, you know, the way that he has always excused all of these, I can do it myself. I don't need the Congress to appropriate the money. I don't need them to declare war, et cetera, whatever it is, whether it's tariffs or wars. He ignores what Congress is saying. He ignores what the Constitution says. And he always does it on the basis of an emergency. So I guess the question is, what is the emergency about a 250-foot arch that they can do it themselves without Congress appropriating the money? So again, is this an evolving arrogance that we're seeing from Trump? Are we now no longer going to have, like I said before, usually when they drag us into an unjust war to attack somebody, usually they would have a false flag event. I said this about the war against Iran. I said, where's the false flag? They didn't even bother to do that this time. I was expecting that they would do a false flag. And a lot of people said, well, they'll probably do it later. We're still waiting for it. And not that I want one, but still, I think they've gotten to the point where they don't feel like they need to orchestrate a false flag. I think they've gotten to the point where they feel like they don't need to declare an emergency. They just do whatever they wish and dare you to stop them. This is what we're seeing from the Trump administration. And so in response to this corrupt slush fund that he is setting up with $1.776 billion, you have an organization, the Justice Connection, and the founder of it, Stacey Young, said it is a network of DOJ alumni who have gotten together to oppose this. They got a projector, and they projected on the DOJ building, the Department of Justice, they projected a quote from John Adams, said, "A government of laws, not of men." Because this latest grift and corruption is not simply a violation of ethics and law. It's not simply insider trading. This is absolutely a robbery of the Treasury, a big one. nearly $2 billion. And so Stacey Young, the founder of Justice Connection, condemned the creation of this compensation fund, said this is an extraordinary abuse of power. It is a sign that the rule of law is crumbling right before our eyes. Yeah. It isn't just Justice Connection raising concerns about this either. Some lawmakers have also voiced their apprehension. One of them is a Republican, actually, but also Democrats. This is a Democrat, Jamie Raskin, who says this massive abuse of public money also has glaring constitutional defects. Only Congress has the power to appropriate federal dollars, and we didn't appropriate 1 cent for this millionaire trust fund. Well, again, they get all constitutional when the opposition is in. The Republicans do the same thing. The Republicans, Democrats only care about law and the Constitution when their opponent is in charge, and then they look the other way. We're trying to compensate people where the book was thrown at them, and they were mistreated by the legal system, said J.D. Vance. Well, the reality is that even if you look at this, and we're doing this for the J6ers, they claim, you watch and see where the money goes, if you're allowed to see where the money goes. The report is made to the president alone, and he gets to pick the people that are going to be making the allocations, and he can remove them for any reason that he wants. He doesn't have to have a cause. And so I don't think there's going to be any transparency as to who's getting this stuff. But I seriously doubt, just like when we saw when he locked everybody down over COVID, he set up, it was destroying small businesses. He said, no, the big box retailers that have stock on Wall Street, they need to stay open. We got to have them open. It's all you people on Main Street. You need to close. But don't worry, I'll take care of you. Just like he said he's going to take care of the farmers. We did the tariffs, and he left them twisting in the wind. I still don't know if he's given them any money. But they were promising from the time that he did it that they were going to do it. As of January, I know they still had not done any relief of the farmers after the damage that he caused. And when we saw what he did with the small businesses, they redefined what a small business was, and more than 50% of the money went to only 5% of the companies, to the big guys, companies like his. And I think you're going to see that in this as well. I don't think you're going to see the J6ers get money. I think most of it's going to go to Trump and to the big people at the top. So again, big bucks to Trump, and he's one of many, many billionaires and rich people who were shamed in terms of this release. I mean, that's the bottom line. I read you the list of all these different billionaires. I mean, you had people like Warren Buffett, George Soros, had Bill Gates, Bezos, Elon Musk. We had all these different people who had information released by this guy that was a contractor to the IRS. He had access to the information, and he put it out there to shame these people and say, look at this. This guy who made X number of $1 billion paid no taxes. I think Soros didn't pay taxes at all for 3 years. Did the same thing with Trump. And so Trump is the only one of this disgusting billionaire criminal elitist class. He's worse, folks, than Soros and Bill Gates in terms of they didn't sue the government. He did. And he sued the government with him being on both sides of the table so that he could then hand himself billions of dollars. Think about that. He's worse than Soros in terms of this corruption. Not even Soros did something like that. So again, will Trump pay the J6ers, or is this simply about him? So I think the damaged people are going to be people like him. That's really what we're going to see from all of this. And hang on, I got something I didn't cover yet. Yeah, the blatant corruption of all this stuff. I wanted to get to this. I didn't get to it yesterday. This so-called anti-weaponization fund. Now, I said when Trump became president, I said, yeah, they did weaponize their power system corruptly against him. But I said, you watch. What he's going to do is he's going to do the same thing to them. He wants it to be perceived as, don't you mess with me, I've got power. He doesn't want to actually fix the system. He doesn't want to put in reforms to block anybody from doing it. He wants the power to do it to people himself. And that's what he's doing. But now he's gone even further than that. I didn't anticipate that he would set up a a fund and pay himself. And he's even said that. He said, it's crazy how this works. I'm basically paying myself. This is the way the guy is. He actually thinks out loud and tells you about the crimes that he's doing. And the MAGA people are too stupid to figure it out. Even when he tells them, I'm going to pay myself billions of dollars. Oh, that's great. He's our guy. He's a blue-collar billionaire, right? Again, his corruption is worse than Soros, worse than Biden. So the fund is part of a deal that was decided by Trump to drop the weak $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS. Again, he had no basis for doing that. None of these other billionaires did it. A $10 billion lawsuit because he's throwing $10 billion lawsuits against everybody. He threw a $10 billion lawsuit against Wall Street Journal because they correctly reported his Epstein birthday card. Turned out every detail of it was exactly right. And even after he found out the details were, it was made public and the actual card was released, he continues on with that. Because it is about weaponization. He's the one doing the weaponization, and he's the one who is doing the corruption, the insider trading of stocks, and the insider trading of taxpayers' money. That's the real IRS scandal that's involved here. Thank you for joining us. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.
It's your move. And now, The David Knight Show. analyzing the globalists' next move